That was the best pre-meeting we've ever had. That's amazing. I call this meeting back to order, and I believe Dama's going to introduce our musicians, perhaps, and then we'll close out a closed session.
Ms. Schneider? Oh, thank you.
Good evening, Board. There we go. Good evening, Board. I'd like to introduce our student musicians that have joined us this evening. Guys, come up here. Thanks. We have Xander Chang on violin. He goes to Monticello High School. These are all seniors. Adrienne Park, who is a senior at Albemarle. Sean Fu, senior at Albemarle, and Eric Chen, who is a senior at Albemarle.
Thank you very much. And we have a motion out of closed?
Yes, I move that the board certify by recorded vote that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion authorizing the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Osborne, seconded by Ms. Spillman. Could we please have a roll call vote on that?
Dr. Berlin is absent this evening. Ms. Osborne?
Yes.
Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Ms. Spillman?
Yes.
Dr. Acuff?
Yes.
Mr. Page?
Yes.
And Shirley?
Yes.
So moved.
All right, so moved. Next, we have our roll call. We'll start with Josh Black.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Josiah Black, School Division Counsel.
Matthew Hawes, Superintendent.
Chandra Hayes, Assistant Superintendent of Instruction.
Ellen Osborne, Scottsville District.
Allison Spillman, at-large representative.
Judy Lee, Rivanna District.
Kate Acuff, Jack Jewett District.
Graham Page, Miller District.
Chuck Pace, Rio District.
Isabel Wong, Albemarle High School.
Pat McLaughlin, Assistant Superintendent for Strategic Planning.
Claire Kaiser, Assistant Superintendent for Organizational Development.
Christine Thompson, Clerk of the Board.
All right, that's who we have tonight. Next, we'll stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Next, we have item 3.0, approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I move we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Acuff, seconded by Mr. Page. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
None opposed? All right. Agenda is approved. Next, we have 4.0, approval of consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Moved by Ms. Spillman, seconded by Dr. Acuff. Is there any discussion on that? Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? All right, consent is passed. Next, we have announcements, and we are going to start with Isabel Wong, who is our student representative from Albemarle High School.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Isabel Wong, and I'm a senior at Albemarle High School. I'm here today representing YAPIC, the Young Asian and Pacific Islanders of Charlottesville organization, where I serve as president. Our mission is to strengthen the young Asian American and Pacific Islander community in the Charlottesville area. We propagate positivity regarding our heritage, provide support to ourselves and other disadvantaged minorities, and dismantle the societal generalizations that suppress our identities. I'm personally passionate about student involvement in shaping our educational policy, as well as advocating for equitable opportunities for all students. In addition to that, I'm involved in various extracurriculars, so here's some background info about me. I play on the Albemarle varsity volleyball team, serve as vice president of the Society of Women Engineers, and am an active student in MESA, Albemarle's Math, Engineering, and Science Academy. In the future, I'd like to pursue a double major in the visual arts and applied mathematics. I want to utilize my interdisciplinary interests to integrate diverse fields of study and provide creative problem-solving tactics. I also participate in my school's student equity and advisory team, where we work to foster inclusivity and equity in our school community. I've been a representative on Albemarle's student equity team since its founding year, and I'm so happy to have witnessed it grow and develop across the county. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Isabel, and we're very excited to have you on the board. And as I tell all of our student reps, please feel free to speak up, ask questions, and represent the students. So thank you very much. Next, we have school board and superintendent business. Do we have any?
I just have a couple of things. First, I want to welcome Isabel. It's wonderful to have you here. I do want to say a big congratulations to Monticello High School. This week on Tuesday, they had 100% staff attendance. So for a school that size, to be able to have all of their employees in attendance on the same day is an accomplishment. And I think it reflects the efforts of our entire school community. I want to just note that on Monday, I had the opportunity and privilege to visit Blue Ridge Detention Home School, where right now there are 37 students enrolled. And so that's a regional detention center, so it's students from all over the region, and some from Albemarle. The atmosphere was calm and productive, and it reflected the dedication of the school staff to providing a supportive and structured environment for learning. The director, Tanner Boyle, shared insights into the school's unique approach. And one of the things that they have that's used throughout Virginia is a program called SIDNet. And basically it's a closed circuit telephone and texting information system. And he brought that the whole reason it came up was because once students get used to using it, they're constantly communicating with him, asking for more books to read. Because for many students, when they're attending there, it will be the first time that they finish a book from cover to cover, and then they get addicted to that and they want to keep reading. Mr. Boyle explained that once they get used to using it, they do build stronger relationships with the staff, and as I mentioned earlier, they really want to get after reading books. They do require a silent, sustained reading periods, and that leads to their first finished book. I got to observe the PE class with Ahmad Hawkins. Mr. Hawkins is a former NFL football player, and he has a high energy class, and they were meeting in the gym on Monday and practicing layups with a lot of feedback from him. And Mr. Boyle told me it's not uncommon for when a student resides at Blue Ridge that within a month or so, many students lose between 50 and 70 pounds because of their following FDA guidelines and nutrition, and also the portion sizes, which they often complain about initially, but then as they watch their fitness increase, they appreciate that. I was able to observe Mr. Allen's English class where students were reading out loud the Odyssey through a graphic novel, and he was using the Promethean board for Kahoot quizzes and deepening the students' understanding. And in Mr. Hill's science class, students were making, just as they do in other traditional earth science classes, the traditional baking soda volcanoes, which were going off as I was visiting. I did have a chance to meet with one of our Albemarle students who, thanks to the consistent support of his high school teacher, Mary Kelly, who is a teacher at Monticello High School, as well as his teachers at Blue Ridge, he's making remarkable academic progress. And one of the things that Mr. Boyle wanted to point out to me was that of all the counties, Albemarle County's teachers are the most likely to follow up with a student who becomes incarcerated there. And it's not just because they're trying to check in on academics. He said that he we'll immediately get emails from teachers asking, could they please visit the student because they're concerned about them and want to make sure they're okay. Also, there's a dedicated security team, Cameron McCain, Josh Linkus, Alan Watson, and Donnell Miller, and they play an essential role in ensuring a safe, welcoming environment, and I really appreciate their assistance with my visit. The work happening at Blue Ridge is mission critical. It proves that no matter the circumstances, every student has the potential to thrive with the proper support and care, and I really appreciate the visit. I do want to, just a quick announcement, we will have a 2-hour delay tomorrow due to the impending hurricane and also some of the critical conditions we saw today and then are extending into this evening. What we'll do is have a 2-hour delay and then we'll reassess to see what we're going to do with the whole school day. So we'll make a second announcement tomorrow morning. But right now, the announcements will be going out and you'll be hearing everyone's phones pinging and ringing while the board meeting's going on. So thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thanks.
Dr. Haas, remind me the age range of the students at Blue Ridge.
They will be ranging from late elementary school all the way up through post-high school. And I got to visit with several post-high school students that were there.
Thank you.
I also just wanted to mention that this week I was able to meet and speak with the building services pre-service, which was really nice. And I know that everyone has been working very hard. We know we got the presentation from Matt Wortman last time, but it was just nice to be able to come and say thank you. So that was good. All right. I believe we do not have any public comments still. Is that true, Christine? I don't see. Okay.
No public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize, no, we
That's
do
all right.
not.
Okay.
I was waiting for Dr. McLaughlin.
Thank you. And next we have Dr. McLaughlin, 8.1 Assessment and Accreditation Update.
All right, good evening, board members. I'm Pat McLaughlin, Assistant Superintendent for Strategic Planning, and I'm here tonight to give you an update on our accreditation and accountability results from the 23-24 school year. Tonight's presentation is going to be relatively high level, but more detailed information about everything that you are going to hear is attached to Electronic School Board. You have 3 items in there. One is the accreditation detail report, which goes school by school and assessment by assessment, and gives you information on how our kids did for each of the schools. The other is a unadjusted pass rates for our students in reading, writing, math, and science. And the final piece that's in there is growth-adjusted pass rates for our achievement gap groups. If you have any questions about the specifics of those, I'll be happy to take them tonight. So just as a quick reminder, the current assessment system and accreditation system that we're under uses 2 primary methods of gauging schools' progress. The first is what we call our assessment results. Those are unadjusted results, just the number of students who took an SOL test divided by the number of students who passed an SOL test divided by the number of students who took an SOL test. That's where you see any comparisons to the division as a whole from a school. That's where you see comparisons to the state. The other factor that we'll discuss tonight is accreditation. That is where we adjust student scores for growth. So if a student doesn't pass a reading test, but they showed growth from the previous year to the next year, they count as a pass for purposes of accreditation. That's a very simplified way to describe it. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to provide more details about those. So, I'd like to start tonight with our assessment results. These are unadjusted for growth. These are where we can get a comparison to the state. In reading, we are up 1% from last year to 75% of our students passing their reading tests. And all of our achievement gap groups, with the exception of Hispanic students and students with disabilities, showed improvements from the previous year. In writing, we are up 5% to 78%, and we had improved performance for all achievement gap groups with the exception of our Hispanic students. In math, we are up 3% to 72% overall, and it improved in all achievement gap groups. And in science, we are up 1% from last year to 68%, and improved in all of our achievement gap groups except for Asian students. Despite those improvements, significant achievement gaps remain. And if you look at our unadjusted scores and you look at our overall results compared to just about any of our achievement gap groups, our Hispanic students, our students with disabilities, our economically disadvantaged students, our Black students, there's a gap, and sometimes usually a double-digit gap that's there. So that's a continued area of focus for us to try to close those gaps with our assessment results. The second piece in accreditation and accountability are our accreditation results. In English, the only places you see growth-adjusted results are in English and in math. Science doesn't have growth adjustments. It's just a straight pass rate there. But in English, we improved performances for our achievement gap, all of our achievement gap groups except for our Asian students who came down from 95 to 93%, and our English learners who held steady at 93%. In math, we improved performance for all achievement gap groups and saw some double-digit growth for our Black students and our economically disadvantaged students. And those scores ultimately lead to accreditation ratings for each one of our schools. Each of those categories, there's 6 categories for our elementary and middle schools. There's 9 categories for our high schools that they are judged on. Each one of those gets a level 1, a level 2, or a level 3. Level 1's the highest level of performance, as you probably knew. And any schools with all greens are considered level 1. Any number of level 2s, the whole school goes to a level 2, and any number of level 3s, the whole school goes to a level 3. You can be a level 1 school or a level 2 school, and you're accredited with the state. If you have any level 3 indicators, you are what we call accredited with conditions, which means you have to do some more targeted improvement with the Department of Education. Our level 1 schools, we improved from 4 schools being at level 1, meaning every single category was green for them, to 12 this past year. Level 2, we went down from 12 to 4, and level 3, we went down from 8 to 7 schools that were there. 10 schools improved their ratings compared to the 22-23 school year. 3 schools had a rating decrease, and 2 schools jumped from level 3 to level 1. That was Henley Middle School and Monticello High School. And so this is where our schools are landing. Technically, this is still preliminary results. The state just announced today that they're going to release these officially on Monday, September 30th. We don't anticipate any changes to these, that we've got 16 schools that are accredited, 3 schools that are accredited using a 3-year waiver. And what that means is that they have at least one level 3 category, which would normally put them into accredited with conditions. But the state, if you have hit all of your achievement targets for 3 years in a row, the state then gives you a 3-year waiver, where even if you drop in a category to a level 3, you remain accredited for accreditation purposes. So those 3 schools are Journey, Walton, and Scottsville, and then we have 4 schools that are accredited with conditions that do not have a 3-year waiver, and those are Agner, Burley, Mountain View, and Scottsville. And that's where we are. At the start of the presentation, I said that's where we are for this year. Next year, this accreditation system is getting totally redesigned by the state. We are just starting to get the details of what that is going to look like. Instead of hearing schools are accredited or non-accredited in the future, you're going to see these 4 categories, that we're going to have schools that are distinguished, that are on track, that are off track, or that need intensive support. It is more complicated, perhaps, than our current system. I would be happy to come back at some point. I think we'd probably need more time than we have tonight to explain all of the details about it. In fact, we don't quite know all of them for our middle and high schools. We know them for our elementary schools yet, and hopefully within the next 2 weeks, we're going to get all of the details for how our middle and high schools will be evaluated on this system. We are, however, starting last week, we were able to predict where our elementary schools would have been if we were on this model for last year's tests. And we would have had 1 school that was in the distinguished category. That would have been Murray Elementary School. We'd have 8 schools that were on track, and we would have 6 schools that were off track. And one of the things that is interesting about this new model is that every one of our off-track schools is a Title I school. And that worries me, that we've got a model that's set up to make it even more challenging for some of our most challenged students in schools to be in one of those top-tier categories. I will say that one thing we don't know is some of these schools are right on the cusp between on-track and off-track. The state hasn't set their rounding protocols yet, so while this is our best guess right now, they may come out at some point and say, no, it's actually a little bit different than what we heard. But our best guess is that, and hopefully in a couple weeks we will be able to tell you where our middle schools and our high schools would have landed. And so that's the overview of accreditation and accountability tonight. I'd be happy to take any questions.
I noticed that both the off-track and the needs-intensive support claim that the state's going to provide more support. Have they talked about that element of the new system?
Not with significant detail.
Yeah.
I saw something earlier this week about a specific amount of funding that was going to go toward those schools, but we don't know, we were unaware of the details right now of what that might look like.
A follow-up to that. So what does the state do now when they go in to support a school?
So we have any school that has a level 3 indicator goes into what we call state monitoring, which means we have a liaison with the Office of School Quality, and they take us through in the school through a protocol of doing a needs assessment at the school, doing a performance improvement plan, or doing a school improvement plan for the school, and then the schools collect artifacts and meet with the state at the end of the year to say, hey, here's what we were doing, and it actually is it used to be a really uncomfortable process. In the past couple of years, it's turned into a very supportive one, in my experience, where the folks from the Office of School Quality really do want to be helpful to the schools. We have modified our school strategic planning process to mirror a lot of the things that we would expect the state to ask of us when we have schools in with a level 3 indicator. So we've tried to design it so our schools are already doing that kind of work. We think it's good work for all the schools to be doing, and they don't have to repeat it for the DOE.
Yeah, because with the new system, I'm a little dubious that they can support the number of schools that are going to end up being categorized in that category that will need intensive support. So, okay.
I was just wondering, what necessarily defines meeting the state's expectation? Is this purely SOL and testing based, or are there other components?
So are you talking about a current system that we just...
The new one.
The new system is going to be based on primarily on SOL scores. Some things like chronic absenteeism are going to factor into that. Things like the growth of our English language learners, acquisition of English language skills is going to factor into that. And then they also factor in what they're defining as growth, which means something very different than what we're used to with growth in our current accreditation model. Currently, students get what's called a vertical scale score on their SOL assessments, and the state puts out bands. And if you move from one band to another between, say, your 6th grade and your 7th grade reading test, you've shown growth in that. There is a new system called the VVAS system that sets a different target for kids based on their a longer history of their SOL testing, and says that I think this student should, based on everything else we've seen, this student should score 430 on their SOL test to be able to show growth next year. One of the things that is going to be different about this system is that growth used to only help us in accreditation. Now growth is every single student is judged whether they grow to the expected rate or not, and growth can actually have a negative impact on which category you land in the new accreditation model.
Okay, I have a question about the adjusted pass rate. How exactly is that determined? Is growth sort of factored in?
Yeah, so let me, I'll put up an example for you, Graham. I think it might be easier to, sorry, Mr. Page, it might be easier to see here. So this is the accreditation detail report that is in your packet. And on this first page, this is for Agner Elementary School. And this first page is all of their English data, their reading tests that they took last year. And if you look in this top box here, under where it says all students, so that's every kid in the school who took a test, 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Under the passing column, there were 115 kids who passed their reading SOL test, got a score of 400 or above that year. The next column shows recovery. And what that means is the state gives you extra points in your accreditation model if you have a student who failed the previous year but passed the current year after receiving remediation. So those kids count twice for you. So of those 115, 7 of them were recovery students who failed the year before, passed this year, so they count 2 times for the state. The next column is growth. 30 students at Agner did not pass their SOL test, but based on their scores from the previous year, they showed growth. They got better at that, even though they still didn't hit the target of a 400 or above. And so they count for what they call a growth pass. And that pass counts just the same as a student who passed an SOL test with 400 or above. And then the final category that's only in reading is EL progress. So there were 9 students at Agner last year who didn't pass their SOL test, who didn't show growth, but were English language learners and showed growth on their WIDA test. They moved enough from the start of the year to the end of the year on their WIDA test that they count that for a growth in reading. And so if you add all of those up, the 115 passers, the 7 recovery, the 30 growth, the 9 EL progress, and you divide it by 184, which is their total number of tests, that gives you your rate of 87.5. Anything above 75 is a level 1. 65 to 75 is a level 2, below 65 is a level 3, generally. There's a lot of other ways, there's all these other things called, like you can reduce your failure rate and not hit 65 but still be at one of these levels. But for the most part, that's how they calculate the accreditation score to include growth.
Has there been any response from the state that we know of to VAS's email or the various school boards, including ours, that have reached out with criticism or asking for more transparency on this? Do we know if they have acknowledged it or if there's been any response?
I am unaware of that. I'm unaware of that.
Okay, thanks.
Patrick, one thing that stood out to me was when we had the academic achievement, when we're seeing levels other than 1, often it was in science. And I was just wondering if you had any idea of where we stand with the rest of the state with that, and just anything that you can tell me about that.
Absolutely. So with science, overall, we're, I believe, a point higher than the state. One thing I neglected to mention, the Virginia School Quality Profiles are where you can go in and you can see all of this. You can go in as a division or by the school. And you're correct, there are 5 elementary schools that had a level 3 indicator for science. One of the parts of the story that doesn't necessarily tell, though, is that many of those schools were actually improving in science, but didn't improve enough to get out of level 3. Some of them, and we're talking about some razor-thin margins. One of the big frustrations I know Mike Irani had at Agner this year is that he was 1 test away from being a level 2 in science, and he had 2 students who had scores of 399, which is 1 question away from passing their science test. And so sometimes these, you see that big red indicator there, and it doesn't necessarily tell the complete story. The accreditation detail report helps to get into that a little bit more, and then we work with our principals to get even more detailed with that. We do some reporting in Power BI that breaks it out by grade level, so they can see what's going on in 3rd, 4th, and 5th and how their folks are doing. So not to say that science doesn't continue to be a focus for us. It certainly does. But many of our schools were getting stronger in science last year compared to 2 years ago. And last year, if you recall, was the first year of the significantly more rigorous assessment in 5th grade science. And so I was kind of proud we even held steady and went up a little bit with that.
And just a follow-up probably for Dr. Hayes then. Do you think that the improved literacy curriculum and the coming improved math curriculum are going to help with those science scores ultimately?
One of the things that the team has tried to do is create some alignment between other content areas with science, literacy, social studies, so that they can either kind of introduce some concepts through other content or support concepts in other content areas. So we're hoping to see, we're excited about what we have. We're hoping to see some growth. Of course, this is a new product and people have to get, acclimated with it, but we're at the point where we're getting ready to do some of the first assessments. But there is alignment in the pacing guides between different content areas. And then once we get a look at the curriculums that are available for math, we can start to kind of work out. But right now, we just don't know what the state is going to offer up for options.
Thank you.
Very much along the lines of what Chair Lee just asked. What does our science curriculum look like in the elementary and middle schools? And when's the last time it's been, I don't know, reviewed?
So we just adopted Five Ponds Press in our schools, and one of the things that one of our goals this year is to provide hands-on learning experiences for all of our students. And so Ms. Katina Dudley has been working diligently to make sure that the schools have materials so that when the students do take the assessment, they've actually had some practice and hands-on, and as they're working with the technology-enhanced items, they're familiar with it. So we are making some adjustments and some changes to support teachers in the classroom so that when students see the new materials and curriculum, they can connect it to what they see when they take the test in the spring.
I mean, I know that the state led the charge on the literacy materials, and now they're doing with the math. Is there any mumblings at the state level about science curriculum, or is that down the road?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
And so, but, sometimes they surprise us. So.
Are we adopting a new science curriculum next year, or science textbooks anyway?
We still have to do some work around adopting more additional science textbooks, but those are for some of our upper level classes, like our AP classes and things like that. But for our elementary or our grades, we've already just done the adoption with Five Ponds Press.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I will also mention that at the ACES meeting, the last ACES meeting I attended, Katina did show us some of the test questions, and I found them to be quite elliptical. And it's not one of those things like, are you smarter than a fifth grader? Like, I could understand, but it was just written in a really, hard to understand way. So I do understand that, some of the test questions are just harder than they need to be, not really testing the knowledge, but just testing, like, can you read backwards, sort of.
Testing your test-taking skills.
Exactly, test-taking skills. So anyway, I just want to mention that also.
I just wanted to know if some of those materials that you guys are purchasing for the elementary sciences, and social studies too, for that matter, is content tray books, things that kids can read during literacy period that could support their science instruction.
Absolutely. Our team works really closely together. Our elementary curriculum coordinator for ELA, for science, math, they have meetings every week to work together to make sure that what students are seeing is consistent across all of the subject areas, and that teachers feel supported in all of the areas, because they're elementary, so they're teaching, of course, multiple subjects there. But they work together to make sure that there's alignment and that students can see similar themes throughout different content areas.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one more for you, Patrick. Other than having different, more proactive names for these categories, off track and need support, what do you see as the practical value of this new evaluation system?
The advice each year we go and we meet with every school about accreditation and just kind of run through the accreditation detail report and make sure we're all on the same page with that and talk about planning for this year. And the advice I give everyone is keep doing what you're doing. Keep focusing on getting kids more literate, focusing on getting kids more adept in math and science, getting kids into school so that they're not chronically absent. And let's not worry about labels right now, because I think as you all alluded to, some of the things we're hearing from the state is it's up to 60% of the schools in Virginia are going to be in the off-track or the needs-intensive support category. And something just doesn't ring true to me with that. And so I'm encouraging everyone, keep your eyes on the goal of increased student achievement. And if we do that, then we're doing the good work that we should be doing.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thanks very much, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
We are scheduled, I know it's early, but we are scheduled for a break because we have a meaty student pathway exploration after that. So it's 7:06, so I'll see everyone at 7:16.
I do not.
I wasn't expecting any questions. Judy turned toward you. Yeah, just kind of put some pressure on it. Right. You know what I'm looking forward to when I get home?
Yes.
When I go to bed. I did the same thing last night. I have like this back in the freezer, and I just laid on my this side, and just laid it right there. I was like, this is heaven.
I don't know if this is assistant, I mean, unless you're going to actual resources.
Well, he said these should all know. I don't trust it. I don't trust it because it's my law. Yeah, it's supposed to, but I never trust it.
So it's a whole new science.
They glued it, so I can.
Communities are sensitive to this. And now suddenly we've got needs intensive intervention.
I call this meeting back to order. Next, we have Mr. Domer with our Student Pathway Exploration, Part 1.
Good evening, School Board. My name is Craig Domer. I'm the Executive Director of Curriculum Assessment and Instruction. And it's my pleasure this evening to introduce our two-meeting Pathway Exploration Work Session. We're going to give an overview of Pathways High School Redesign. It will also include an overview of CTE programming as well as K-12 arts programming and how we advise students and families in making decisions around career and academic advising and pathways. Before going further, just highlighting our division's vision and mission. Of course, working together as a team to end the predictive value of race, class, gender, and special capacities for our students, with our goals of thriving students, affirming and empowering communities, and equitable, transformative resources. High school redesign and pathways have some very explicit strategic plan connections, particularly in Objective 2, Strategy 2, that ACPS will ensure academic requirements allow students time to pursue interests in and outside of school. And for Objective 3, Strategy 1, that ACPS will develop learning pathways that align with Virginia's career clusters, with exposure to career pathways beginning in elementary school. As we do a lot of this work in the Department of Instruction and out in all the schools, we kind of have 4 questions that keep kind of going through our minds. How do we leverage student interests and personal vision for their future to improve their engagement with school? How do we prepare students for multiple launching points after high school, college, and career? How do we prepare students who don't earn a post-secondary degree for successful outcomes? And how do we partner with families and community partners through the pathway exploration journey with intentional touch points to support students to meet their goals? At this point, I'd just like to pause and really highlight all the educators that are both here tonight and work on these questions every day in the schools. They bring these questions and our strategic plan to life with their care and concern for students, and we really couldn't do any of this work without them. Tonight's agenda, we're going to start with an overview of pathway exploration and college and career readiness data, which will highlight the why of all of this work. And then we'll have smaller kind of rotations that will allow you to interact with the educators and teachers around K-12 arts and secondary pathway exploration. We'll wrap up briefly at the end of tonight with emerging themes and next steps, and also to hear any questions or comments you have in preparation for our second work session in October. Right now, though flexible, our second work session will focus on high school redesign, the Scholar Studios, industry credential, and work-based learning opportunities, and then we'll wrap up the 2 sessions as a whole. We started with just some objectives about what we were hoping to accomplish in these 2 sessions, and I wanted to share them with you. We're hoping that the board and the teachers and the educators and all of us together will be able to know, understand, and do these bullet points. And some feedback along the way about how we're doing would be great, and we'll try and achieve these goals. And without taking any more time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Megan Maynard, who is our coordinator of CTE and really coordinator of all things college and career readiness. So, Ms. Maynard.
Thank you, and good evening. To get us started, I want to talk a little bit about what we know about how young people view pathways. And over the next few sessions, as we talk about both current state and future direction, we've been trying to follow the research about what our current students are saying about how they see pathways. When students talk about the future, they're most likely to describe how they want to live versus what they want to be. They imagine themselves thriving in the future, but have different levels of confidence with regards to knowing which pathways will help them to meet their aspirations. They seek to experiment and try on different pathways. Traditionally, we have looked at careers as linear paths within industry sectors, but in today's global economy, more people are picking and moving across pathways that allow them to use their diverse skills and talents to tackle the problems that they want to solve, the issues they care about, and the way that they want to make the world a better place. Pathway exploration overlaps multiple areas, and so you'll hear over the next 2 sessions from lots of different educators across the spectrum of content and support areas. All pathways, both in CTE and arts, fit into the National Career Cluster model. You can see on the screen the most recent released National Career Cluster model, which is slightly different than the model that we've used for the past couple decades, which was previously just a list of 17 different career clusters. The middle school programs within the CTE and arts offer exploratories. In high school, we offer sequences of courses, and these individual course sequences are also wrapped throughout our K-Tech offerings and our Scholar Studio model, so that students who want to be a part of a small group of peers pursuing similar interests can learn and explore their pathway together. All of our K-Tech programs have at least a 2-course sequence of CTE classes, and all of the Scholar Studios have elements of CTE and/or the arts infused throughout them. They include pathway sequences, industry credentials, and work and community-based learning. VDOE offers almost 600 different CTE courses, and here in ACPS, we offer over 100. This year, we had almost 5,000 middle school and high school enrollments in CTE classes. CTE is unique in that in addition to being tied to student interests, we have an expectation that our courses are also preparing students for life beyond high school. In order to provide high-quality experiences for students, we look annually at student interest data to determine which programs and courses our students are most passionate about. With this at the foreground, we analyze regional labor market data, and we look at high-skill, high-wage, and high-demand careers. The UVA's Weldon Cooper Center provides data for us around that, and you can see links to that information here in the slides. With regards to what high skill, high wage, and high demand refer to, high skill refers to anything in addition to a high school diploma. So that could be work experience, a credential, but beyond a high school diploma, it might be an associate's degree, a graduate degree, bachelor's degree. High wage means above the average wage for Virginia, and high demand means above average demand in Virginia. Career and technical education includes more than just coursework. It includes career exploration, industry credentialing, and work-based learning as well. Tonight, we're going to be focused on pathway exploration, and in our next session, we'll go into some of the other aspects. ACPS students have multiple touch points with pathway exploration over the course of their student experience. Career development starts in preschool and elementary school classrooms through career awareness, via counseling lessons and guaranteed field trips. In middle schools, all ACPS students take a career investigations course in 6th grade, in which they explore all of the various career clusters and reflect on their personal interests. Additionally, exploratories in arts, STEM, and entrepreneurship are available to middle school students. Through advisory and seminar in our middle schools and high schools, students draft their personalized academic and career plans and curate artifacts for their portfolio. In high school, every student takes an economics and personal finance course, as well as 2 sequential electives in either CTE or fine arts as a graduation requirement. All Virginia graduates are also required to meet at least 1 college and career readiness indicator for graduation, which can include college coursework, industry credentials, or work-based learning. Pathway exploration is a key element supporting our vision that our learners are engaged in authentic, challenging, and relevant learning experiences, becoming lifelong contributors and leaders in our diverse and dynamic society. Next, I'm going to introduce Rusty Carlock, who's going to talk a little bit about our college and career readiness data.
Thank you, Megan, and thanks to all of you. So I want to frame this conversation a little bit with data and how we're doing with regard to preparing students for life after high school in Albemarle County Public Schools. So our goal is to think a little bit about what the historical trends tell us in our community, what we're doing well, and what we can do to improve the opportunities our programming is providing students as they transition into adulthood. It's going to consist of both quantitative metrics, so we can look at what the numbers say, but we also want to hear from the voices of our students, so we'll be presenting a little bit of that qualitative data as well. So at the top level, the College Career and Civic Readiness indicator is something that the state provides. And so this is a metric for evaluating how we're doing in terms of preparing students for that transition to post-secondary life. To meet this metric, prior to graduation from high school, our students have to do one of the following. Pass a college-level course, which could be a dual enrollment or advanced placement course or an actual college course, participate in a work-based learning program, or complete what the state considers an industry credential. You can see at this table that we're doing quite well on this metric, with over 90% of last year's cohort meeting it, and that was also an improvement over the previous year. However, we do want to make a distinction between the state's metrics around this and what we consider internally as important metrics for preparing students for life after high school. And we want to make one important distinction between an occupational competency assessment, which is our workplace readiness and WISE financial literacy assessments, and licensure and industry credentials. While the occupational competency assessments, they're useful assessments for evaluating general student competencies. Most of our industry partners do not hold these as indicators of success in the workforce, and they prefer industry standard credentials or licensure tailored to their specific industries, such as EMT, ServSafe, Nurses Aid, CompTIA Plus, and information technology, et cetera. So when we look at our students earning credentials as the state defines it, you can see that the vast majority of our students are earning those credentials through the WISE assessment and through those occupational competency assessments. Much fewer are earning those industry standard credentials, and about the vast majority of those are earning them in K-Tech, not in our site-based schools. This is important, and this is just a few graphs from a national study and looking at the relationship between students participating in a college and career experiences in high school and then later outcomes around career and college. And you can see that students who participated in those kinds of career experiencing and exploring activities, both of those had high correlations to students both being employed later as a young adult and also attending college. And so that's something that we really wanted to highlight as well, is historically there's sort of an old model where people think of, oh, you either go into career tech or you go to college preparation. That's not how it works anymore. It really can be both, and oftentimes they work in conjunction with each other. We have students who earn industry standard credentials and then use those to get high-paying jobs to help them pay for their college so that they can actually attend college. Now I'm going to pass it over a little bit to Emily to talk about our students with disabilities and how we support students to prepare for life after high school.
And good evening. My name is Emily Skelton, and I am a special education coordinator for the county. The last slide talked about how important those career experience or career experiencing activities were important for students to be able to connect just with the outcome of having a career and being prepared for that after high school. And for this particular group of students, students with disabilities, it's incredibly important that we're offering targeted and high quality opportunities for these students, because as you can see by the data for both the country and the state and then the county, outcomes for students with disabilities in terms of college enrollment, overall lower levels of college enrollment for students with disabilities across the board, overall lower levels of employment, and then overall higher levels of poverty for students with disabilities. So just to highlight that providing early and often opportunities for students to be able to figure out what they need to do to get to where they want to be is extremely important. Some of the ways that we are currently working to offer these opportunities to students in Albemarle County are through our partnership with DARS, which is the Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services. This can occur through pre-employment transition services, which abbreviated as pre-ETS, or vocational rehab. And these are opportunities for students to work with job coaches or job shadowing, so that students can practice and do assessments to what skills they have and what skills they need to gain to be able to gain employment. And a big thing that we do is partner with DARS to refer families to these services so that they have a counselor and case manager manager to help them navigate these resources. For our population of students who require additional supports, I'm sure that you all have heard of our C-BASE program, which is our students who, most of them are working on applied studies diplomas, and they require the most amount of supports for our students who are in our elementary through high schools. Many of these students have access to the CETE courses that are offered to all students with additional adult support through C-BASE. But a lot of these classrooms are also offering their own specially designed instruction in career readiness, including through coffee carts, student enterprise for that, community trips and volunteering. And this is all guided by the student transition plan in their IEP. At Post High also, which is our program for adults 18 to 22, and I know many of you attended our graduation last year. These are our C-BASE students after they exit from high school. We partner through DARS for these students for individual referrals, but we also provide a community-based curriculum and coursework. Like, that is the core of what Post High does. And in addition to that, this fall, we have invested in a curriculum called Project Life at Post High, which we learned about through a Butler Tech site visit this past spring, and staff are going through implementation training for that this coming month. And there's just an overview of the curriculum that the Project Life program will provide to our students at Post High. And next, I'm going to pass it back to Rusty to continue to talk about broader data on student outcomes.
Thank you, Emily, and I want to note that I did a really poor job of introducing Emily. Emily Skelton is our special education coordinator, and she does a fantastic job. Also wanted to note, prior to getting into this, that another group that often is asked about is our English learners. And we work really hard to also support that group of students for a positive transition into adulthood. However, I want to note that the state funding and the federal laws around supporting English learners are not nearly as robust for English learners as they are for our special education population. So some of the programs that exist for our special education students don't exist for our English learners. So we want to look not just at how students are doing now with us, but we want to look at how students have done after they leave Albemarle County Public Schools. And so to do that, we use the National Student Clearinghouse data set, which captures around 90% of all students' post-secondary outcomes in the United States, or anyone who enrolls in an institution of higher education, and that's defined as a 2- or 4-year institution. It's a data system. It's not perfect. It doesn't capture everyone, but it is the one that the state uses, and most states use to track their post-secondary outcomes. When we look at the data from our 2015 cohort of graduates from Albemarle County Public Schools, we find that about 22% never enrolled in an institution of higher education, and around half of our students enrolled in an institution of higher education and completed a degree, but there's around 1 in 3 students who enrolled in an institution of higher education but did not earn a degree. And so that's something that is concerning, because in some cases these students may be worse off than students who did not enroll in an institution of higher education, because they may have incurred college debt without the benefit of a degree. I want to note that this is not just an Albemarle County issue, this is a national issue that many high schools are beginning to wrestle with, to try to understand how they can do a better job of supporting students to transition into adulthood more smoothly, and to do more on the front end to support that process. We also know that college attendance rates are declining nationally. When we look at data from more recent cohorts of students, we see that these trends have stayed fairly consistent, with more than half or around half of our graduates either not enrolling in an institution of higher education or enrolling and not earning a degree. This one is based on a 4-year time scale, so that we can look a little bit more recent in terms of our cohorts. The bottom line of this analysis is that more than half of our students are entering adult life without a post-secondary degree or certification. So that means it's all the more important for those first 2 groups that we see there, that we are doing everything in our power to make sure that they're either earning those industry standard certifications when they're still with us, or getting as much of a head start to be successful once they enroll in a college to get there. It's important for us not just to look at these quantitative metrics, but also to consider what are our students telling us about their experience and our current pathways for college and career readiness. So we can look at our Panorama survey data, and the particular scale that we see here is valuing of school. And that's an important scale to answer this question because it looks at how students feel that school connects to what they care about, what their future goals are, and what their interests are, and what they do on a day-to-day basis. And you can see that third graders are really excited about school. They love it. They feel like it connects to what they care about, what they're interested in, and what they're going to be interested in the future. But then as kids get older, through the process, they begin to value school less and less until we have less than half of our secondary students are saying that school connects to what they care about and what they're interested in. Part of this is developmental. So if we look at the national average, that's happening across the board. As kids get older, they're less finding school to be less valuable for them. But you can see that our data starts to trend negatively relative to the national data in middle and high school. So that does show that we have an opportunity to add value to that experience for our secondary students. When we look at it across our schools, this is something that sort of binds our schools together, that we're all below the national average there, so it's something that we can all work together on. So all of our 3 comprehensive high schools, as well as community laboratory school, has that as a place that we could add value. So we wanted to learn more about, well, why are students saying this? Like, why are you saying that you don't value school? So we went to our students at Monticello High School and conducted some youth participatory action research, which they were super excited about. There was actually 2 students who led it, Durain Baluma and Kimi de la Cruz in Monticello High School. They were already interested in looking at some of these things around, how can we make school more interesting for students? And so we worked with them, and they did a fantastic job of interviewing 25 of their peers. They followed great protocol in stratifying their sampling. They used EMIC coding to identify themes in the data, and then they went back to the students afterwards and said, hey, I just want to make sure, is this what you're telling us? And this is what they found. They found that the students at Monticello High School were saying that some of the reasons they didn't value school is there was too much lecture, there's not enough activities and too much free time, and there was a lot of busy work and fill in the blank packets from their perspective. But they also asked them what are ideas for how to make school more valuable, and some of this came from what are teachers doing that does respond to what you're interested in. And they said, hands-on learning, relevant topics and lessons. And many spoke of their career interests and goals for the future, and they wanted their high school classes to be more connected to those, not just in career and technical education, but across their courses. They wanted to be more connected to what they plan on doing after they graduate. They felt that they were not always prepared for the real world after graduation, and they wanted more opportunities to practice the skills they would need in career and in college in their classes. So I'm going to pass this on to Emily, who will share some of the voices of our students in the special education program and how they've experienced that transition to life outside of high school.
So when we talk about data on post-secondary outcomes for our students with disabilities, the biggest data point that we get every year is indicator 14, which is school divisions are responsible for conducting phone interviews to survey former students. So this past year, we called over the summer students who had graduated in 2023 and asked them questions about their employment status, about their higher education status, what they were pursuing, and also what barriers they had to access. We're still waiting for the state to get back to us with our numbers for this past year because they're just due at the beginning of this past month. But for me, the most powerful piece of this was actually the conversations that we have with families. I got the opportunity to actually conduct many of these phone calls myself this summer. And it really was powerful to hear about some of the amazing success stories that our students with disabilities are experiencing. I heard from a lot of really proud families of students with learning disabilities who are succeeding in college. I heard one student started his own business right out of high school, and his family was so proud of him for that. On the opposite side of that, I heard from a lot of families that they needed help figuring out how to get their student with a disability a job or how to get them resources to access college. So for me, that is our charge, and that is why we want to be providing these opportunities for students to experience and grow in these areas before they leave us after graduation. So some opportunities for growth for students with special education, really just continuing to collaborate with DARS and support for teachers and families in navigating that process to make sure that families have the tools they need to access those resources and understand what's available to them before they exit. Also, continued investment in high-quality programs such as Project Life that provide that systematic curriculum for students with more significant disabilities, and then increased collaboration between CTE and special education to enhance opportunities for our students with IEPs, just because there's a lot of expertise there. I think that we could benefit from further collaboration, and then also continuing to support students with IEPs in our CTE courses. And at this point, I'm going to pass it off to Jill Dahl, Assistant Principal at Albemarle High School, to provide more information about that.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you. So I'm just going to offer a close zoom in a little bit on what classes look like at the high school setting, and I'm speaking solely for Albemarle High School. So when we look at what our percentage of students with IEPs or that are identified as Ls, our school average is 11% based on our 23-24 data, and our L average is 14%. In our collaborative classes, the way the model currently works, which is pretty common across the nation, is that SPED and L support is pushed into core classes, your math, science, social studies, and language arts or English. And I think there's always been an emphasis around, the requirements of SOL, graduation requirements. And so I would like for us to look a little differently, that CTE is a graduation requirement first and foremost, but these are also areas where the industry credentials that these students could earn would also provide them with job opportunities after they leave high school. So I just wanted to offer a few scenarios of what those classes look like. In our, I'll pick a few CTE courses where we have both SPED and L, whereas typically in our core classes, it's a SPED collaboration or a L collaboration. Seldom do you have both unless you have dually identified students. In our CTE courses, teachers may have both students, and they do not have a collaborative partner. And often our CTE teachers are career switchers and are still working on the teaching pedagogy, but they have the expertise that we need for these spaces. So in a engineering course where you have a lot of tools and equipment, our average in our CTE 1 engineering materials and processes, which is, there's saws and what are the tools? Drills, there are things that can cause harm, right? Safety. There's a lot of safety practice and measures that go into it before kids are allowed to use those. But in our average is, for SPED enrollment in those courses, is 18.5%, where our school average is 11. So we're almost double over-representation in a course where there is no support. For Ls, it's 25.9%. With no collaborative support. And so that's a narrative that's played out, and we are always working to support the teachers in those classroom spaces, but I think that it's really important to put some emphasis there to see how we can do better so that students are able to obtain and get the experience they need to do well on those industry credentials. Another piece that I looked at was that what that enrollment looks like from a level 1 course to level 2. You see the drop off of SPED and L students that go on to take that level 2 course because the accessibility of it, which then impacts us when it comes time for graduation. So that's just like a close lens look at what it might look like in the classroom space at a high school. So I hope that's helpful. Thanks. Turn it back over to Megan Maynor.
So you heard a little bit of an overview on pathway exploration, as well as a little bit about where we stand currently with our college and career readiness data. It's really great to have a student school board member here with us today, and I was in both Western and Albemarle High School today, and this week is homecoming week for a few of our schools, so there's a lot of spirit, there's a lot of engagement. Kids are, I don't want us to be confused when we say our data shows that students aren't necessarily valuing the learning in the middle school and high school. It doesn't mean they're not engaged, that they're not passionate about life, that there's not issues that they care about. They certainly do. I was an Albemarle High School graduate, so when I was thinking about Spirit Week this week, it brought me back to that moment in time for myself. My husband graduated from our schools, as well as all of our siblings. My kids went through our schools, and now I have a granddaughter who's on her way through our schools. And so I'm deeply passionate about this work. Yes, I know, yeah. Another one on the way in November. And so I'm deeply passionate about this work, about the legacy of what we've done in Albemarle County, what we've done around career and technical education. I recognize where we are in terms of current state, but our data says that while it may have worked for me, it's not working for all students yet, and we've got work to do. And I'm really committed to improving in the future. So as we looked at our data and we listened to our students and families, we see opportunities for growth and improvement. Many of the challenges that we face are shared in divisions across the state. They're shared across the country. Some of our focus areas are around engagement at the secondary level. Additionally, with VDOE's newly adopted framework, as Patrick was mentioning earlier, an aspect of that is the Ready for Life framework, which focuses on enrollment, engagement in employment, and enlistment. And that is aligned with our efforts at increasing access to industry credentials, work-based learning experiences, and high-skill, high-demand, high-wage pathways. We'll share more about each of these in our October work session. We also know that we can do better in supporting our students with IEPs and our English learners in preparing for post-secondary outcomes. And we're looking at programming, professional development, and instructional strategies to mitigate some of these challenges. We're going to pause at this point to take some questions for myself or any of us on the team. Questions?
For Rusty Carlock, I mean, the data that showed that over half of our students don't go on to secondary or don't finish or don't even go. Have you stratified, I'm sure you have, stratified the data by demographic?
So for our more recent cohorts, we're able to do that. We're able to match our students with the older data from some of the cohorts we were looking at. We don't have that capability to match it with the national data set. However, in looking at some of the more recent cohorts, our data is not different from the national data in the sense that the students who are most likely to enroll in an institution of higher education and not finish are also our students who are most marginalized within our community.
I have a question and a comment, mostly pertaining to the SPED stuff. What kind of jobs are these students getting? Specifically, the C-base and the post-high students who obviously need the most support while they're in ACPS. What sort of jobs are we seeing when they come out?
I think it depends on the student. I know a big part of the DARS process for our C-base and post-high students actually involves some really in-depth job assessments. So DARS partners with vendors who are workplace coaches who will take students out. At post-high last year, we had students who worked at local restaurants, like setting up they did assessments, and some of them sustained employment at a local restaurant, setting up the eating space before customers started to come in and cleaning and wiping menus. We had some students who did assessments bagging groceries at grocery stores. We've had students work doing like clerical work and shredding at a veterinary office. I know this year Post-High is working with the Department of Transportation actually to partner with the shop to help with detailing buses and stuff between having groups of students on them, but I think the biggest part here is trying to find employers that are open and willing to have students with disabilities experience having a job and are willing to be flexible and offer accommodations. And in my experience, it really is about finding the best match for employer to student because those are the jobs that stick and students are able to sustain employment there for a long time.
Yeah, I think it was really indicative, with the assessment and accreditation information that we got from Mr. McLaughlin, and then the SPED and the CTE correlation, it really is becoming apparent that we need more funding in our SPED programs because a lot of these students do need more of that hand-holding, for lack of a better word, and giving them access to these CTEs, I think, is a great idea. But if we can't help them succeed in those, then we're really doing a disservice to those students. So that was more my comment that, our demand is high and we're not meeting the needs. So that's something we really need to consider when we're looking at our budget for the next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question. I'm so sorry. I forgot who made this point, but it was about how it's like we have really robust support for like SPED students, but not as much for EL students. But my question was, I don't know how prominent this is in other schools, but I see this because I'm a peer tutor at my school. We work with like the Newcomer Center that has a lot of like SLIFE students, which is like students with limited or interrupted formal education. And I was wondering if any of these policies and like CTE is also expanded to that, or what you guys have in mind for those students.
Lauren McLean is also here and can speak best to that, but I know that our peer tutors, especially at Albemarle High School, I heard the statistic that they supported 6,000 sessions last year alone, and I think our peer tutors supported around 68 different languages as well, so it's a great opportunity to partner.
Hello, everyone. I'll also add, we love having the peer tutors at the Newcomer Learning Community. And so when we think about our students with limited or interrupted formal education, one thing we have to recognize as we're looking at some of these credentials is that some of them actually aren't accessible to students because of their immigration status as well. That's something that we can't ask about. We're legally prohibited from doing so, but it's something that we know is coming up, right? And so that's something that we're trying to balance as we think about CTE access. But the other thing that we know is when we look at post-secondary readiness, it's so important for students to have full English language acquisition. And so our focus really from the English learner perspective is how are we encouraging our students to acquire English and use CTE to invest them in getting the language skills that they want to get the job they want so that they're also growing their English and then can exit EL status. So there's kind of those two complicating factors. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I like the idea of this 8-week workplace skills course, and I was kind of hoping you would be able to tell me more.
At AHS?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The DARS connected program?
The Project Life curriculum, yes, and that's something that I know a group of CTE teachers and then some special education people went out to Butler Tech to just see a site replication of that, and there was a slide, I have to go back to see, but there is a robust site replication training that actually happens to be able to train the teachers and the staff in being able to implement this curriculum to fidelity. And I also know that there's a partner program associated with it called Project Search that I think replicates like work sites with community partners to be able to pair students who have gone through the Project Life program and worked on work life and work, home, and community skills to be able to match them with that high quality and trained employer that would then be able to help them build further skills. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know more. When did the 8-week course take place, or is it going to take place?
So I think that this course is meant to be implemented through a whole school year.
Okay.
So there's Project Search and Project Life. Project Search is a program that's been in the state of Virginia for quite a while, and it helps, as you mentioned, connect students with workplace opportunities. And Project Life was piloted by Butler Tech, which is a CTE national host site in Ohio that we went and kind of learned from. They have found higher percentage of student success in their Project Search employment by providing students first with Project Life before they go into Project Search. So the Project Life curriculum helps students to kind of gain some practice and some confidence in a supported environment through some of these skills that are listed here. And then that helps them be able to find more success in the Project Search where they're going out into the work site. So we just started learning about this and are getting trained on it. And so I think it hasn't been implemented yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting, for sure.
And I can follow up with more information if you'd like more.
Yeah, and once it's implemented, I'm sure it could be a great opportunity to come see what the students are doing with the curriculum too.
Sounds like a great plan.
I had a question about the, what's come up a couple times, the SPED and EL support in the CTE courses. Is that funded differently from other types of courses?
So it comes down to the FTEs that a school is allocated. And so the priority goes towards the core content classes. And then I know at Albemarle, we also are able to hire some TAs, but they're not certified teachers that are able to provide some support. But right now, those are currently all being utilized in core content classes. And so there just isn't enough FTEs, enough people to go around.
I have a question about the lack of interest and how that appears to be falling in high schools. And I think worksheets, free time, and not relevant were the three things mentioned in the data. Does that appear to be true in Albemarle County too? Were those answers from our county, or were they from the nation, or what?
So the national data shows that students value school less as they get older. Those three themes that you mentioned were found by student researchers here in Albemarle County by talking to their peers.
Do we have data to compare that to pre-COVID? Do we know if that was the same?
We started doing our panorama data around the time of COVID, so we don't have that comparison data prior to that.
My guess is it's increased since COVID, for sure.
But we are aware of those things, so I guess we are thinking about something that could be done to sort of alleviate some of them in a way, right? I mean,
yes,
miracles, yeah. Okay.
Yes, our leadership team was very interested in this and was already starting to work on some things to talk about it.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Nope. Mr. Nomer?
Yes, thank you. I neglected to tell you before we started, we did include just a note catcher if you wanted to use it with the 4 questions at the top, and then for each section of the presentation. We're already through the first 2, so you have to do those from memory. But something for you to carry from this month to the next as well as we try and find some themes. At this point, we were going to break up into 2 kind of rotations so that you could interact with some of the teachers around K-12 arts and some of the counselors and teachers around how we advise students and families about pathways. I think we're going to start with arts in 241 and with the pathways and advisory kind of group up here in the dais. If you guys want to split yourselves in half, and then we will switch at about 25 minutes so that the public can hear both presentations. It would be our slight preference for 3 board members to be up here and 4 to be in 241, but I will
We only
leave
have
it to
6 tonight,
yourselves.
so 3 and 3.
It's 3 and 3, and the student rep.
Plus student.
Oh, student rep, I'm sorry.
So that would be our slight preference, but we'll leave it up to you.
We can do it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Are we going to get
3 in here and 4 in there.
We're going to 241.
with us?
Okay.
Are we going down the hall?
241?
241? Take my.
All right, I'm staying here.
I just leave it here.
That was my take on that. Just to sum up.
Is there a place you want? Oh, okay.
Then I'll pop back.
Just for a change.
We didn't achieve it. All right. I overestimated us. Well, that's what I figured would be better.
We weren't sure if we would have this slide deck or not, so we have lots of handouts.
Oh, fantastic. Just two of us. They'll figure it out.
They
Send
didn't-
another person
they don't
around.
know math. Sorry. Let's try and pull it.
Oh, no. Biology is important.
Biology, yeah.
So are we still live here?
Yes, this one will be, I don't know if it is this minute, but when we start, we can move it to live.
So we need, because they're having an accidental closed meeting in there?
Bring down the gavel, Judy.
I'm ready. There's still, well, it's a public meeting, 3 is a public meeting, and they're live streaming this one.
Okay. So we need one more person?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi there. Megan and I went to visit and tour the Culpeper.
Oh, yeah.
I'm more hung up on the fact that you're having a grandchild,
You know,
because I thought you were
All
like
of
just
us
out
are.
of college,
Yeah.
literally. So I want whatever beauty, whatever, like separate from this. All of us were like, I'm sorry, what did you
We
say?
all just like,
We have 5 daughters, and our oldest daughter just had a baby, and she's due in November. So.
Oh, my gosh.
So you're a mom of
And
5
they're-
kids too?
And they're both girls, so it's like.
All girls. Wow. Man. Well,
Allison has 5.
5, yeah.
I couldn't see past.
And I look much older than her, and hers are, she's got grandkids,
5
good
is the
lord.
magic number.
Oh, well, now you tell me.
Oh, man. I feel like they age me 10 years every day.
We are waiting, right?
Yeah, I think Rosalind's sending another person our way. But what's happening in the other room is not being televised, and it has 3 members, 3 school board members. And it's a big meeting. So there needs to be 4 here. This one's the one that's still being televised.
So is Rosalind after being the enforcer?
I think that Rosalind's being the enforcer.
Dr. Hayes, I think we're waiting on one school board member. Oh, here we go. Check.
Sorry, it took so long.
We don't follow instructions. No, I don't feel bad about having to pee.
No, you could have peed again.
I could have peed again.
Oh, man.
Now we're ready to run down. Yeah, there's a lot of people.
I don't know.
It's a big team. We're all committed.
I love it. Awesome. Great.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So as I shared earlier, Pathway Exploration has touch points throughout our K-12 scope and sequence. Today, in this particular work session, we're going to be focusing on the secondary components of that. We'll start out looking at what Pathway Exploration touch points we have with a STEM teacher from Journey Middle School, who's also one of our advisory teachers and has taught the career investigations class. Erin Percival, who is our safety instructional specialist, who will share a little bit about our guaranteed field experiences. And then we'll move into talking with our school counselors, Mackenzie Crawford from Walton Middle School, Amy Wright from Western Alabama High School. And then I will finish this out in looking at our academic and career planning platform, which is called SchoolWalks.
Lots of handouts tonight.
Thank you. Love it.
Tonight we're going to talk about the secondary pathway exploration opportunities, and these are the touch points we have with students really focused on careers. I hope as you kind of hear each of these, you'll be thinking about kind of our goals for our work. Increasing awareness of students, their own assets, their skills, interests, talents, engaging them in an iterative cycle of career exploration and reflection around the pathways. And then opportunities for students to design plans that help them achieve goals that they imagine for themselves. So the first touch point that we're actually going to talk about is advisory and seminar. So during middle school and high school advisory, students participate in activities and discussions about their futures. They use school links to help them identify strengths, skills, interests, and explore related career opportunities. This culminates in students setting SMART goals that they review and adjust annually. Advisory is really designed to provide students with opportunities to iterate their plans as their priorities and goals change. The second touch point is our guaranteed field experiences. All of our guaranteed field experiences provide opportunities for pathway exploration and include opportunities for students to consider the different occupations and careers of those working at the site and the different roles that they play. Additionally, we offer several career-centered trips. On October 15th, all freshmen will participate in Pathway Day, where they visit a local industry partner and experience the workplace. Beginning this fall, our 8th graders will visit both K-Tech and Center One as they start making decisions about their high school academic plans. And in the spring, we host Senior Day, an annual event featuring local employers, hiring for positions, offering opportunities for career workshops to help students navigate post-graduation options and information sessions about financial planning and job skills. And then the final touch point I want to talk about is Career Investigations. Career Investigations is a 6th grade exploratory course offered at all middle schools. 6th grade is a time when many students are just starting to consider their own strengths, interests, and futures. This allows them to flexibly imagine their future without being locked in on one specific occupation or pathway. And while students investigate a variety of career clusters, this is not a course where they're simply researching careers. Instead, cross-cutting skills such as communication, collaboration, problem solving, and creativity are explored through the lens of different careers. Students select occupations and complete projects which they take on the role of someone in the field through project-based experiences. This provides students with a background for a culminating portfolio project. Lewis Griffin, I'm going to introduce him, is a teacher at Journey Middle School who's taught this course and has a little bit more to share for you.
Yes. So I've taught the course 2 years in a row, and one thing I really like about it, and I think it's unique, we split the course into 3 different units, and there are about 6 workplace readiness skills. So the first unit is communication collaboration, second is creativity and innovation, and the third is critical thinking and problem solving. And why I personally like it as much as before I went into teaching, I actually had a career in each of those different fields, so I get to share my own personal experiences with that too. But like Aaron said, it's a unique course because it's not just your typical career research, finding out what they do, what the average salary and growth in that industry. You get to play the role in that career. So an example would be you can play the role as a software developer and make a Scratch game with block coding. You can also play the role as an educator, as an elementary educator, make a lesson plan with actual real Virginia Standards of Learning, and they have a little template they can make a lesson plan. So not only do they get the hands-on part right there, but they are going to be reflecting it in their portfolio. So they reflect on it if it matches their interests, matches their strengths, and then in the beginning of the course, they do a little workplace personality assessment, and they'll see if that matches that. Now, sometimes they don't agree with what they're told their workplace personality type is, and that's totally fine. But they are going to reflect on that in each stage, in each unit as we go through the portfolio. And then we finish up where they get to imagine themselves in the future, and they share it with some peers, family, and a teacher.
So that's an elective offering for 6th grade only, is that correct?
Correct, and it's a 9-week course, so we throw in a lot in a short amount of time, but they get to cycle through and play different roles of different.
Are there many 9-week are there?
So 6th grade, they have, like, at least at Journey Middle School, and I know at some other schools, it's like a 9-week wheel. They call it the wheel, where every 9 weeks they shift. It gets them to expose them to different electives and have an opportunity to do a deeper dive. And
Is that the same at all the middle schools?
Yes. I think they had, yeah, at Lakeside, I remember.
But yeah, the culminating project is the portfolio, and then the real nice thing is that they get to share it with family, share it with friends, and then they get to bring it back to the teacher and show what everyone has said. So.
And there's some examples of those
Yes.
from the 6th graders
Yeah.
in his class in there, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
I think we didn't, my oldest, we moved here after 6th grade, and then the twins were COVID year with 6th grade, so I don't think we actually experienced it, that's why I was curious.
What percentage of the students take that class?
So students that are taking like band or orchestra, those will be all year long exploratory, and then AVID would be the same. So I want to say it's at least a good 2/3 of the grade that will be in the wheel and take that. Yeah, it's a big portion.
And I know you introduced, are you a counselor? I mean, who are you?
I am a teacher at Journey Middle School. I just actually switched roles. I'm CTEM STEM teacher. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if you guys like to learn more about career pathways at middle school, Kenzie can tell you a little bit more about that.
I also have a lot of handouts. Hi, my name is Mackenzie Crawford. I'm a school counselor at Walton Middle School, and I'm going to talk to you guys about some of the goals that we have in the secondary level for academic and career planning, and you'll get to hear about the high school as well, but I'm going to talk a little bit about what it looks like in middle school. So our first goal, as you can see, we want to support students in identifying their interests and abilities to encourage self-discovery and academic engagement. A key aspect of career development is assisting students in discovering their talents and connecting them with potential career activity or opportunities. During middle school, students are having some of their first chances to select their own courses. They're selecting electives. They're being exposed to extracurricular activities, and we are a big part of that and helping them figure out what is out there for them and what they might enjoy doing. They're also getting some increased feedback on their academic performance. And so there's a lot of times where we are talking to them in middle school about their grades and feedback they're getting from their teachers and trying to help them through that process. And also, we spend a lot of time talking to kids about their careers or their career interests and their goals, their academic goals. It doesn't have to be about that in an individual counseling session, but we often do. We talk about, well, what are your goals and how does that relate, what's going on now, to where you want to be, whether it's high school or later in life. And I do want to add that we use information that we learn in the School Links activities that you talked about. We learn a lot about the students and their interests. You heard about career investigations, and then counselors are also very involved in the AVID programs, and most of the middle schools do have AVID in 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. Goal number 2 for us is to equip students and families with the knowledge and resources needed to understand various academic pathways and their career options. I'm going to hand you all, I have copies of the middle school transition timelines. What's really unique about middle school is we have 3 transitions. We have an 8-9 transition, and that's what the high school sets. We have our own students in 6th grade and 7th grade, and they're transitioning within middle school. Then we have fifth graders transitioning to sixth grade. So let me hand you those. Thank you. Just a little look. And they're all a little bit different because each level has a little bit different needs depending on where they are developmentally. But some things that you will note in these, in the notes and what's consistent throughout all of the timelines is communication and partnership with families and making sure that families and students have all of the information they need so that they can make the right decision for them. So we have extensive websites with all the information. We go into classrooms and do lessons. We are sending information electronically. We have parent nights and family nights where students and families can come in. We do individual course registration meetings. So there's a number of things, and this goes on for months. And there's so many opportunities to make adjustments as well. As we learn more about the kids or if they want to make changes, we're available. I want to note that I already had a fifth grade family come in and meet with me a few weeks ago about next year. So they think about it early. They want to know what their options are. And finally, the third goal is to provide comprehensive support that combines academic guidance with social emotional development to prepare students for future challenges. A lot of this can be stressful for students, for families. It can be overwhelming. It can bring up a lot of feelings. So we think about the social emotional part of all of this development. Again, one of the big things for us is that those transitions into middle school and then into high school. So we have a lot of activities, and I highlight for sixth grade, the fifth graders visit us in middle school, and they do tours with students, and they eat in the cafeteria, and they learn from students. And so we get them in the building. We have an evening orientation where families come. Again, there's information and tours. We have a panel. We have a social. And then we also we have student ambassadors at Walton. We take them to the elementary schools at the end of the year to answer their important questions like, is middle school food good in the cafeteria? So we answer all of those questions for them as well. But all of these activities are to help them feel prepared, feel comfortable, and to give them all the information that they need. And I have for you guys, finally, just a few handouts of some activities that we have at some of the different middle schools that everybody's really proud of. At Journey, they have a number of activities. They have a career night that they're especially proud of. And so here's a flyer that they created of just some of the unique things that they provide. Additionally, at Lakeside, they have career cafes that they have parents come in and they use information they learn from school links to get speakers that are related to the interests that they're learning from their students. And then at Walton, we have a student ambassador program that we're very proud of. We have 70 students in it this year. I think we might even have a few more than 70. But these students are involved in our transition process a lot. Like I said, when we have students giving tours and visiting the students in fifth grade, when we go to their schools, they're the ones giving the answers. They're hearing it from their peers and not from the adults so much. And I think next is Amy. So Amy's going to talk about those same goals, but what that looks like at the high school level.
Hello. So yeah, the goals are the same. What we're trying to do is prepare students for when they leave us. And it's the same things. And so what we do is we start by going into classrooms and letting students know what their opportunities are, both at our school and across the county. And we talk about how they choose their electives and how they choose their courses. So of course, first they have to meet graduation requirements because now we're in high school and credits count. But we talk with them about what are they interested in and what are their dreams and what are things that we offer that they might aspire to as they continue on in their life journey. And we also want them to think about trying something new. So we're lucky that we have a lot of opportunities for that. And sometimes it's overwhelming because there's so many choices. So we have those classroom meetings, and I think at Western that's probably about 42 classrooms that we go into. And all the high schools do this, but we all do it a little bit differently. I'll just put that out there. We go over to Henley, on the day of our curriculum fair. So that's like a big, huge day in the world of course registration. So counselors go over with a group of students, and counselors will talk about the same things we do with the high school students. And we have 2 sessions just like you have tonight. And then so students will be talking to one group, counselors talk to a group, and then we switch. And it's great for the students in Henley to learn about, from the student perspective, what happens. And hopefully it matches what we're telling them happens at the high school. So we have that opportunity. That evening, we have our curriculum fair. But I forgot to tell you that we also have the curriculum fair during the day. And that's an opportunity for the high school students. Even though you're in the high school, you probably don't know every single course that's available to you. So we use our nice long lunch, and we make a big perimeter around the cafeteria, and kids have the opportunity to talk with teachers and students of those courses to find out more about them. That same setup stays in the evening so that parents can come in and do the same thing. We also, Ms. Sublet and I will do a little discussion that's very similar to what we've talked with the kids about, but more parent-oriented. So it's a 2-pronged event. After that, we meet individually with every student. And I love these meetings because that's when you get to really know your students as a school counselor. For 9th graders, the time is usually between 15 and 20 minutes. And as we get older, there's more things to talk about. Juniors who are rising seniors tend to take between 30 and 45 minutes. And you may think in those meetings, the first thing we say is, oh, what do you want to take next year? That's not how it goes, because we want to find out what's going on in their life, what things have changed, what experiences have they had, and we fill out these conference sheets as we have our meetings. And we fill them out in pencil, because a lot of times things change. When we have those meetings, we typically start with, how's your year going? What are things that are going well? What are classes that you're enjoying? What are clubs that you're getting involved in? And it leads into, what are you doing outside of school? What are things that bring you joy? Do you have a job now? Do you enjoy it? Which then leads to the class discussion of what's going to be appropriate for them to take. And at Western, we do those individual meetings typically from the day we get back from winter break until the middle of February. And then we invite parents in if they want to, if they want to have that discussion. We don't exclude the parents. We want to have their input, but we have found when we meet with the students separately, we might get some more information out of them, and they have that agency to speak for themselves. So we really like that process. And just like middle school, we have until the end of April for them to make changes. So as they're talking with teachers, they're talking with peers, they may make some other decisions, and that's fine. But we do cut it off in April because we somehow have to start writing that master schedule. So there is a stopping point. So that's what we do at the high school. And I think Megan's going to finish up.
So you've heard a little bit about a program called School Links, as everyone has talked throughout the night, and School Links is our college and career management platform. We've actually only had School Links for about 2 years. Before that, we had a platform called Naviance, so you may have heard that prior. We've been really excited about School Links, mainly because we find the kids like it, that it's what's considered sticky, which means once you get in it, you want to keep using it. It's really exciting. Whenever I open it, you can see, oh, a student did this 2 minutes ago, and this, it's like a data feed, so I can see all the engagement that the students are doing. And you can see some of the different aspects of the college and career management platform. Students work to discover their interests. They can explore college and careers. They actually use School Links to apply to colleges through the Common Apps when they become seniors. They can create digital portfolios and resumes. But all of the different exploration that they do between 6th and 12th grade actually goes together into what's called a comprehensive academic and career plan. And so I wanted to kind of show you what the platform looked like a little bit, as well as how you could see how it combines into a plan for students. So academic and career plans are an expectation from VDOE. They're expected to be started in 7th grade, and students should update them over the course of their years with us. There's some overlap between transition planning, and so I wanted Emily to share a little bit about how the overlap works with our students who also write transition goals.
Great, and I have a handout for you just with an example of a transition plan that would appear in a student's IEP. Goals in the areas of education, employment, training, and independent living are required to be a part of the IEP by the time the student turns 14. So that is facilitated through the IEP process, but because there's also this other plan that is required by the state in terms of career planning, we just wanted to show you kind of the interactions between like both of these required documents and how School Links has really helped IEP teams to be having more robust conversations about career planning for students with disabilities.
Yes, so all students kind of go through the different aspects of academic and career planning. You can see some of those listed here, and we're going to walk through a few screenshots about what that looks like. So students start with interest and skills exploration. There are several different assessments that students can take to learn about themselves and their skills and their talents, and it will then match them with their personality, with character traits, cluster matches, top skills, and careers. As someone was mentioning earlier, Lewis was mentioning earlier, they don't always connect with what it matches, and I think one of the things that we really emphasize is to take these several times, not to just take them once. And one of the things I like about this particular platform is it will actually show the students' trend data. And so they can look over time, and even though maybe in 6th grade they had chosen a career that wasn't really an interest, over time, maybe by the time they get to 9th grade, they can see, oh, you know what, arts has always been there. Every year, though my interests have changed, that one has kind of stayed the same. So it's neat to be able to see those results. And with this platform, regardless of which school students transfer to, they can kind of carry that data with them. It also gives them an opportunity to explore the different pathways. They can look at careers, whether that be hot careers, which are considered really in-demand careers, careers based on particular clusters that they're interested in. They can look specifically at military careers. And within each of those careers, of course, the typical information about salaries and education, but there's also a day in the life videos and mentor videos so students can kind of experience what it would be like to participate in one of these careers.
Yeah. Are the hot careers regional at all, or is it just from national?
So in this, they're all Virginia-based, so it specifically looks at Virginia, but students could turn off the Virginia filter and look nationally instead.
Awesome. Cool.
Additionally, all of the all of the process that they go through allows them to choose their goals and, of course, update their goals. You can see here these particular goals a student had last updated on 7/15. This is a sample demo student, not a real student. But if a counselor or a caseworker was working with a student, they could kind of look at this and say, are these goals still relevant? You know, what are you thinking now? How have those changed? And you can kind of change them in the moment. So there's really an emphasis on what are you thinking right now? What's relevant to you right now? Students also do their course planning aligned to their goal setting. And so starting in 7th grade and all the way through 11th grade, they start to look at how the different courses will map out and align to their goals and interests. And in the end, all of that information gets combined into one nice little PDF that's called your academic and career plan. And so this is a really nice snapshot of a student, and again, this is a demo student, but you can see what this would look like for a student or for a family member, for a counselor to kind of have at a glance what a student is interested in. And I know, as Amy was mentioning, when they have those one-on-one meetings, sometimes I know for my own kids, they're a little bit shy in talking to an adult when they're like, what do you want to do? And sometimes there's some academic risk to say I want to do something that maybe they aren't sure about. And so when the academic and career plan is available, counselors can look at this and ask some questions based on the student's interest that they've already selected. So it's a really nice launching point to have that conversation.
And you've had that for 2 years now, you said?
Yes.
Because I have a kid who's in ninth grade, and I've never seen that. So he would have had that in 7th and 8th.
So we have had school links for 2 years. We're still working on every student using the academic and career plan in those conversations, but they're there, they're available. So definitely ask them about it. And I think that's a great question, because a lot of times families say, how can I support my children around pathway exploration? So some tips that we have, of course, is to talk to your child about it, about their strengths, interests, and their results. My kids want me to stop talking to them about it, because like every time we're alone in the car, like, Mom, stop. But it is important to have those conversations over time with students because they do change so frequently.
Do all the high school kids, they all have access to this and they all know about it?
Yes, and I just looked at the data yesterday. I think we're around 85% of all of our students just this year who have logged in, and so that means they may have logged in previous years. It would be different data, but that's already in the first few weeks of school.
Did we go off Naviance cold turkey, or did we phase it out?
It was a clean switch, so we were able to export data from Naviance into School Links, which gives us a lot of that rich data that you saw from Rusty earlier that connects to National School Clearinghouse. So talk to students about their academic and career plans, encourage them to really reflect on the different things that they're exploring throughout middle school and high school. Of course, always you can partner with your child's school counselor for personalized support and help them to make decisions around college and careers that align with their strengths. There is a link in here for how you can find out more information about School Links. It's also available on the student and family pages on our websites. So that is everything that we wanted to be sure to share with you around secondary touch points. If you had any questions for anyone on this panel.
I do have a question.
Yeah, come on up, guys.
Real quick, for anybody, that I don't know who would answer this. I didn't hear or even see anything about Scholar Studios in the in this planning process. And I'm assuming that you guys are pushing that pretty hard.
Yeah, actually, in School Links, when they do their academic and career plan, the very first question they're asked is, do you want to do a sequential elective, or do you want to do a learning community like a Scholar Studio? So all students to graduate do have to do a sequential elective. They don't have to do a studio, but the studios accomplish their sequential electives. And so that's actually one of the first questions that they're asked when they get to course planning. And that kind of comes after they've done some of their career interests. So you can see it if you look in the sample. I think it might have been the second to last page in my handout. If you look in the sample for that student, it says My Studios or My Studios and Pathways, and you can see what that particular student selected.
What year would you start?
So that starts in 7th grade. Yeah.
So I think it's important to note that Judy has one that was in middle school, is now in high school. I've had 3 over the last 2 years in middle school and high school, and I've never heard of this.
Of School Links?
No.
Yeah.
So, and Judy said she hadn't either. So I think that that's something to note, is that if even your school board members have never heard about this, and we are super active in our kids, then what can we do to get this out to the parents? Because I think this is something that would, one, be very welcomed from our parents, but also would probably alleviate a lot of questions and concerns that get sent to administration and guidance counselors and school board and central office. If that information is there and parents have access to it, I think there may be a lack of communication with that. And so I would really encourage you to find a way to get that out again to all parents and highlight it, because I think it would be really well received.
That's really good feedback, and I can work with our counselors and our school administrators on making sure that that's better communicated.
just a basic question. How many counselors do we have per student? I mean, how,
I can tell you-
what is the professional recommended ratio? Or whatever?
In Albemarle County, our numbers are very good. I'm looking to Miles Nelson. I know I have 175, which is a wonderful number to have.
I'm jealous. I believe the county is committed to follow the American School Counselor Association. That's our standard. 250. And we're pretty close with I know at my school, Western's grown ridiculously over the past 5 minutes, I feel like. And we're really close to 250 right now. But we feel like, I can tell you, I came from a school from 380.
I came from 500.
And when I came to Albemarle, I remember being at graduation and going, who is that student? I can tell you every life story of every kid who goes through that stage now. So I appreciate that the county does have those reasonable numbers for us.
And I think Amy's underselling it. We also had data from, I'm sorry.
Need a microphone.
Part of, now I'm going to be really loud. Part of the knowing every student and looking at ACEs and childhood trauma, and one of the best protective factors is someone knowing you. And Western Albemarle was second in the state in the DCJS climate survey of people identifying counselors as their trusted adult.
Wow.
We actually, and Walton also was in that data. We had two of the top 5 schools in the state for that data of counselors knowing their kids, and they identified them as their trusted adult. And so I really think that speaks to having that 250-to-1 ratio and the things that our counselors are doing to support our students.
That's amazing.
I guess I would ask any of you what you thought of the data about more than half of our students not finishing school or not having a certification.
College.
Yeah.
I get lots of opportunities to speak, so I want to make sure you guys get that.
Well, I guess my initial feeling is sad, because I wondered, did I do something wrong?
That's sort of what I'm wondering. As a
But I'm
school board
also-
member, like,
Yeah.
you know, how can we address that?
But we could also think of it as that maybe those kids need to be doing something besides the 4-year or even the 2-year school.
Right, but that,
Yeah.
that was in there too. I mean, there
Was
was
it?
the ones,
I
there
don't
was
know.
like 30% of the students who didn't get a certification, and then
There's 30% that didn't go to, all we
And
know is
then-
that they didn't go to 4-year college.
That they didn't finish. The 30, the 23 didn't go at all.
23 didn't go at all. That's what
And
I'm
then
telling you.
30 went and left.
Right.
Yeah, that would be concerning.
I was going to say, I would say as school counselors, one thing that we always talk about, and I think you probably addressed this at one point, but making sure that kids are developing skills and employable skills and things like that. And so I know even I've been at national trainings and stuff like that, where that is something that we talk about as counselors, is how can we connect students with opportunities to get specialized training. It doesn't necessarily need to be college, but that is something that we think about. And so I often talk to kids when I'm counseling with them. They may not love school, but you know what, if there may be a program at K-Tech and stuff like that. So I'm having these conversations in middle school to see if there's something that they can connect with and get some specialized training.
And the studios are important in that regard too, because they provide a gamut now. Instead of having 3 specialty academies that are very high academic, we have, I think it's 14, right? 14 different types of programs, some of it mirroring what we had before, and some of it very close to CTE or down toward the CTE part of the continuum.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that kind of helps us transition, because that is going to be the focus of our session the next time, right? We're paying attention to the data, and it's helping us to design programming that we think can address some of the concerns that we're seeing. So we're hoping to share some of that with you in the October session. And I think ARTS is ready for us to swap. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I mean, I think that's.
We know that early exposure is important. You guys actually are staying.
We stay.
Oh, we stay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It was
Thank you so
great.
much.
Thank you.
I wonder what I could identify as my special talents or
I'm actually doing what my career thing said. I think journalist came up like right away for mine. As a young child. And I was like, oh, boy.
Sleep in tomorrow, 2 hours late.
I always hope I can, I never can.
Are they letting you guys come in next year?
Last year, Chris and I got in an Uber. Uber driver was super weird, never met him before. And he goes, I'm gonna guess what you two do.
There were a lot of snow
We're
days
getting
where we were supposed to.
lawyer vibes from him and like
Assistant superintendent.
politician from her, and I was like,
29, just gonna go to bail.
freaked me out.
And
I
now
was
he
like,
has a TV show.
I know, I was like, are you like Tyler Henry or something? Like
Yeah,
what?
he's on Netflix.
Creeped me out.
Oh my gosh, maybe he knew you. Maybe
He didn't.
Googled you.
He didn't. So weird.
That's crazy.
I think we already have.
So weird.
Absolutely
Right.
boring.
Hello.
Thought there might be a delay in it.
I asked for a little bit.
We want to hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just your beautiful music, although that was impressive.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
It's really nice.
Yeah, the orange stands out from the sea of black
Yeah.
cases. So,
Where am I headed?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you? Good, thank you.
It's great to be here. Kurt's going to drive slides for us. I don't know if you really need them. Packet for you.
Fantastic.
What's missing from the packet is all of the wonderful cute slides of all the kids that are in the slides.
The best part.
That is the best part. Thank you. Well, I encourage you, if you haven't looked at those, to take a look at those. I'm Dana Schneider. I'm the content coordinator for the Fine Arts. And these are my guests. Oh.
Yeah, I'm Alexander Chang. I'm a junior at Monticello.
I'm Levine Hiranandani. I'm a senior at Albemarle High School.
Bobby Gregg. I teach band and chorus at Lakeside Middle School.
I'm Kate.
Do you guys know us?
Probably.
You said no? You don't know us? I'm Allison Spillman.
Nice to meet
Nice to meet you.
I'm Julie. Nice to meet you.
Chuck Pace, nice to meet you.
I'm Kate Acuff, and I represent the Jack Jewett District.
Thank you. So this presentation was as a request because we haven't had a comprehensive fine arts update in a very long time,
Exactly right.
from what I
That's
understand. And we kind of got added to this Pathways program work session because there is some alignment between CTE programming and also fine arts pathway programming as students move through. But I wanted to make sure to point out that our programming for the fine arts isn't just in order for students to pursue the fine arts after they graduate. I mean, we really do have a very comprehensive pre-K through 8th grade program and opportunities, and that the pursuit of personal interest in the arts in and of itself is a valuable experience. Now, of course, you've seen a little bit of the overlap from our earlier slide presentation, and you'll hear a little bit more about it in a month when we come back and do our Focus on Our Scholars programming. And there's a little bit of a preview of that in here. I was informed, or I was advised in our last group that I should do less talking and let these folks do more of the talking.
They were gentle.
Oh, they were great. But that the stories from the students are really the most powerful. There's a lot of data in here. There's some interesting trends. It does, just in general, it looks as though we are doing a pretty good job of, I'm going to move one more, of bringing our enrollment back to pre-pandemic numbers. Our programs are looking pretty solid.
And actually, in the middle school, there's some really interesting numbers on percentage of the student body that are able to take these fine arts courses. Some of these numbers are a little bit difficult to ascertain, though, even though these are unique students, not individual course enrollments. How those things are arrived at is different from school to school, depending on staffing, teacher licensure, schedule availability, things like that.
One of the things, David and I talked about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I guess, about the fact that as a school division, we did not slash our arts programming like a lot of school divisions did. But in the time that I've been on the school board, we've not really had a deep dive into what we're actually doing. So this is perfect.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. It's a great opportunity it was a really good opportunity, believe it or not, even though I'm a visual artist, I love data. And so this was a fun deep dive for me to look at these. And it got a lot more granular than this, so you're welcome. I spared you all of that very specific stuff. But what questions do you have? And let's see how we can answer them.
I'll make a comment that our sister school division often touts their fine arts program. You hear a lot about that. And I think we compare pretty favorably since the years that I've been associated with the division.
Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful that we kept our fine arts during the budget process. I grew up in Virginia Beach, and my high school cut choir this year to make room for their, just cut it.
Wow.
Yeah, which is appalling.
It's really
So, and my kids' experience in our fine arts programs has been phenomenal. So I'm interested to hear kind of what your ideas are on the connection between our CTEs and art, and like what we're doing to foster that and what we could do more to, not just get kids into fine arts programs after high school if that's where they want to go, but how it aligns with, kind of this goal that we have of preparedness for after high school in general.
Are you inquiring about like middle school exploratory choices?
Well, I think both. I think, what are we doing in middle school to like get these kids excited about it? Because I mean, our elementary school arts are amazing, and I know my kids have just like loved it. But then, it sometimes can be intimidating to be like, I don't want to play in the band or whatever, but because they don't know much about it. So like, yes, middle school, and then also just in high school, how we're kind of tweaking that to help these kids, really.
So I'll say, I mean, if you look at the enrollment data, there's a couple things happening. There definitely was a dip from COVID, and there's a little bit of a recovery process from that. And part of that is students not knowing about it, like you said. Where the directors and the teachers are trying to work together to get into the schools, to get, to expose the fifth graders to see what they can be expecting in middle school. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but we're doing that. And the students can probably speak to this, because these guys are old enough that when COVID happened, they were in middle school. So they had the opportunity to see what was out there in elementary school.
Yeah.
But we are like back up, actually almost at a high in middle school enrollment for arts programming.
Yeah, I saw it really jumped.
But what that means for the 2024-25 school year is probably different than what that meant in when was the year that we changed, the 2018-19 school year, which was the last school year before the student load cap was enacted, which precipitated a change in the schedule at the middle school level and sort of altered. I mean, there was like this sort of shift. There's a little bit of a blip actually before COVID. You could see that because of because the student, the teachers had a cap on students.
Yeah. Well, I think, then what we need to look at is like, how do we, the numbers in middle school are high, and then there's the drop off to like 50%. So how do we engage the kids from middle school to high school to keep them interested in fine arts?
Yeah, that's been very traditional.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
for sure.
Henley, back in the early 2000s, they had almost everybody doing band. There was a huge number
Yeah.
of kids doing band, and it did not translate to the band at Western, not even close. We lost quite a few.
Yeah.
And
Would you like to speak to that, sort of the natural attrition from middle to high school?
I think to some extent, that's really high. I think to some extent, in middle school, kids are trying things out to see what they like, and then when they go to high school, they may not want to be a part of it. The time period you're talking about was a really strong time, and Henley always has had a strong band program. But in that time, I think you have this experience of doing something really, really great, and you spend all this time and you commit to it, and then you get to high school and you think you want to try something new, and I think that's normal for a kid.
And I did that when I was a kid. I was in a music program all the way up to 8th grade, and then like a dummy.
Yeah, I would suggest the dip maybe is more attributed to there being so many more options in high school, more robust film and audio design classes that kids can be involved in, and not necessarily, it's almost like, you have general music in elementary school, and then you go to middle school, and you have these 4 different options, and then you go to high school, and it expands even more. I would say it's more that necessarily than kids not being excited, except you can look at that number and see it's lower. So.
Right.
You have to see the other girls, what they're doing instead.
That's right.
What you
That's
were
right.
just saying.
Yeah, well, and a lot of the CT options, I think Megan Mayer said there are 100 CTE courses offered. A lot of those are high school courses and that aren't offered in the middle school, that's the first opportunity to get to do them.
I guess I'd love to hear from the students what you think the strength of the arts programs, what the strengths are, what else could be done?
Well, I'd say one thing I really like about the Fine Arts program is the type of community that it brings to the school. So when going into freshman year, I was coming out of COVID year, and I had a lot of anxiety, and I also didn't know anyone because I was in the Mesa pathway. So I was coming out of Burley, not knowing anyone coming to Albemarle High School. And joining marching band, which is one of the options over at Albemarle High School for electives, joining that helped me kind of cut down that class of 200 freshmen into just 10 freshmen. And it really just created it fostered an inclusive environment where I could really thrive and figure out what I like to do and not really worry about the peer pressure and having such a big class size. And I feel like a lot of people who don't participate in fine arts don't really get to experience that because they have to deal with such a big class size.
Yeah, and the string ensemble class at Monticello, which Mr. Escobar, Marco Escobar, teaches, we have a very small amounts of people enrolled in that class, but like you said, it fosters a really strong connection between the people that are in that class, and I'm glad to have that experience.
I was a student in Albemarle County Schools. I was class 2004 Albemarle High School, and middle school I was totally lost. And then I joined the marching band at Albemarle, and then it's like I found my family and my home for the next 4 years, and still here and can't get rid of me.
Thankfully.
So I have a question about the enrollment in high school individual performance courses. I'm not sure about audio recording, but my understanding would be, my guess would be that the guitar and piano people all gain those skills outside of Albemarle County Public Schools. Is that right? Or
No, those are intro courses.
these are intro courses, so you learn guitar like as a high school person.
That's right.
My granddaughter took, first during COVID, you don't learn guitar remotely. I mean, it was terrible. She did not do that.
Jackson
Did not
took
keep it
guitar.
up.
Yeah, his freshman year.
And there are mixes. There's multi-level.
It is multi-level,
You'll have
right.
guitar too, and you will have I am shredding,
Right,
and
the
this
kid
is the E
that's had the
string.
guitar
Yeah.
since he was 3 years old, right?
Yeah.
Just to point out, the audio production, I'm sorry, that's a typo, it should say production, not recording, but that program was a CTE program until the 2021 school year. So that's why it just appears out of nowhere. It's one of the many things we're trying to clean up with coding and licensure. But I went and looked today, the numbers were 180 in the 1920 school year, 217 in the 1819, and 195 in the 17-18 school year. So that program was very strong and continued to be pretty strong, and now seems to be, it looks like, guitars increased, and then there's some other, just students make different choices. Our photography programs are exploding. That's one of those things that is wild to see change.
Well, and that was really cool. Like, one of my twins took photography in middle school, and was so excited to get to high school to be able to take digital imaging because, they fostered this love in middle school, and now it's something they're really interested in. So I do love that there's such a wide variety of options too. Yeah.
I think it's great. I will say it does make things sort of difficult for staffing because you have to have teachers that are capable of teaching multiple different fine arts courses. And I know Bobby can speak to that with middle school. He's, in the last 3 years, he's taught.
Before COVID, I taught maybe every middle school course that existed under the sun, and a few we invented. I love humanities. Humanities is great. But yeah, no, band, chorus, orchestra, I've been through the ringer. This is my first year teaching chorus. 2 years ago, I started teaching chorus, taught that for 2 years. And orchestra. I said, yeah, orchestra. Yeah, I know
all the things.
Yeah. And, I'll say just frankly, it's fun. It's nice to meet all these different kids who have all these different interests, and they share their passions with me, and I can share my passion with them. But it is hard finding people with all the specific skill sets that are needed for them.
And it's hard to maintain programs for that reason.
Digital imaging and photography, what's the difference?
What's the difference? Digital imaging is more of, it sort of leans towards graphic arts, graphic design. I am, one of our newest programs that we've tried to do what were they called? Career learning community in the visual arts, because that was a high demand field. We started the graphic arts program last year at Monticello High School. We only had 4 students actually sign up for that gateway course. In order to make that course work, the principal put those students she merged with just an Art 1 class, and so the teacher taught it more as an Art 1 class with additional graphic design elements to it. Did a really great job, actually. It's a fantastic course. But then they didn't continue it this year into the first level of the course because there were only a handful of kids that were interested. And so, that's just one of those choices that the principals have to make. And what I'm hoping to do, actually, I have to work with the teachers and the principals, but I think we need to merge them into the graphic design curriculum and push that forward instead of the digital imaging. Just because it's a more, what's the word? Sorry, let me look at my slide here. Where is it? High demand. It's a high demand occupation. That's the one.
I was just going to ask something along the lines of how does it fit with career pathways?
It's in here, yeah.
I will tell you that the
Yeah.
filmmaking and film production and stuff that I've seen so far has been just awesome.
Yeah, this is a fantastic program.
Yeah, it's just super impressed.
Did I put some highlight dates for events in here? They are having a spooky film fest at Albemarle High School. Sometime soon.
I missed Craig's final concert last year because I'd already given my promise to AHS
for the film festival.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to choose that too. I went to Craig's, so I'm glad you went to the film festival. Oh, yeah.
And I could have watched them on YouTube later, so maybe I should just because Craig's a long time friend. But it was really fun.
It was. I have been asked, and have been trying to do this for 2 years now, build this division-wide arts calendar so that you all have access to all of the different things. All of us have access to all the different things that happen. This is still under construction. There's a handful of schools that still haven't given me, haven't landed on their dates yet, but
Right.
one of our OAs is working on an Outlook calendar that she's going to share with you.
Okay.
Once that's all up updated. And if you didn't have a chance to look through the slides with the kids, yeah, look through the slides with the kids. What other questions do we have? Yeah, funding for the arts. Do you want to share your story again? Naveen has a great story.
So, I'm part of the marching band, like I said, and going into my freshman year, I play saxophone, for context. The saxophone section was 2 people, and obviously we had enough saxophones at our school to provide for those 2 people. But since that was right out of COVID, we've grown a lot in the past 4 years. Senior year, we have 17 saxophones, and we don't have enough saxophones to provide for everyone, which puts some members of our band at a disadvantage because they can't play, they can't learn the music. And when we have 9-hour rehearsal days, they're just twiddling their thumbs, I guess. Like they can't learn music, and it puts them at a disadvantage. So going to specifics, we have one member of our band who hasn't had a saxophone for the past month because our school just doesn't have the resources to provide a saxophone for her, and that's put her at a real disadvantage because she just hasn't been able to play. She's been kind of just, I guess if you had a skill level, it just starts going down every single day you don't play. That's how I see it. And her skill level's been going down every single day. The solution for this that we found was just borrowing a saxophone from other schools in our area. So we borrowed a tenor saxophone from Burley Middle School, but it would be nice to have a little more funding so we could provide for the students in our school.
Just to give, just to give a little context to that, from the no fees policy, we went to a no fees policy, and personally, that no fees policy was magic in middle school. I used to have kids that came to me and said the reason that said they really wanted to play in band, but the reason they didn't is they knew they wouldn't be able to afford one. Mm-hmm. And we would have gotten them one, but they had
the barrier to entry.
they had canceled themselves from being able to do it without ever asking. And when they didn't have to ask, that barrier was gone. We're in year 6 of that now, and so now there's if you're a 6th grader, you got a school from your instrument from your middle school, you got that in 7th grade and 8th grade, and then you went to the high school. The middle school teacher took it back to give it to a 6th grader, and then the high school is supposed to provide it. And some of these instruments they did not have because they weren't hit with it the year the no fees policy started. They were hit with it the 3rd year. Now we're in year 6, and so it's 6 generations, 6 years, I guess, cohorts of kids. And so, the funding is a little lacking now in terms of making that work. So that's part of the context of that. She had a saxophone, right?
Yeah.
It was not entirely functional or fixable. Is the main point.
Yeah.
She wasn't holding nothing. She had.
I mean, I guess from our conversation, the no fees policy removed an entry barrier, but individual schools would use those fees for repairs and new instrument purchases. So that was now removed.
And from what I understand, I haven't looked at it, but from what I understand, there was some budget initiative to replace them to a certain degree to go back into the school operating budget. But I don't know the details of it.
It's true. Do you want to, if I came over to Albemarle one day, would you show me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the broken saxophone, or
just how you all, where the instruments are kept and how many you have of each and all that. I mean, it would be interesting to know. You obviously have a lot of instruments. Mm-hmm. Because the school's providing them. Do kids bring their own stuff though, a lot?
Kids who can afford it do buy their own instruments.
Okay. That's
And it was like, if you played the tuba, the school had the tuba.
Yeah.
If you had the bari sax, the school had the bari sax. The school didn't have alto saxes because everyone always brought their own alto sax because those are smaller and rentable. But now that the schools are providing them in higher numbers. I'd say at Lakeside, before the no fees policy, I provided instruments to, I'm guessing right now, 20% of kids, and now I'm providing them to 70% of kids.
Oh, wow.
And I think at other schools, went from, again, I'm making these numbers up to an extent, but I think at Journey, it's 100% of kids basically are using school instruments.
Sandra, what about strings? I mean, do you guys have all your own stuff?
No, we also have to like borrow from middle schools and stuff like that. Mr. Escobar works at Burley and Walton Middle School and Monticello High School, so he has like access to all those instruments.
And strings makes a little more issue because when you're a tiny sixth grader, you need a tiny violin, and then your violin just has to keep getting bigger until it's full size.
Yeah.
And, there's usually, I think most of the kids I've had, it was 3/4 to full size, but cello, I had a kid go through 3 sizes of cellos.
Yeah, I played the cello and I didn't even know there were 3 sizes.
It's like a 1/10 cello.
I gave up on it in the 6th grade.
Well, I mean, I
went
know
to
like
the base.
Western Feeder Pattern has the Arts in Western, they established a foundation that raises money to supplement these things.
The
But
Western
that's
School Division, yeah. I've heard of
Western
that
Feeder
place.
Pattern, yeah. The goal is to be able to do that, across the division, but, they're having to make up the differences by raising money and doing fundraisers and things like that.
For purchase and maintenance of the.
Yeah, and buying, and also like buying speaker systems or stages, or, not just.
Choir uniforms.
Yeah,
They've done a lot of
Marching
work.
Marching band
Yeah.
uniforms.
Yeah.
Every year.
So, they put on like a festival and they do things to raise money for it, but that's, not division-wide, unfortunately.
I don't know what we can do in the budget process because it's all so tight.
Maybe it won't be next year. Fingers crossed.
You've got 50 of them.
When we get another governor, it'll be a lot different.
It was right.
Well, and we always try to, I think, put things on AFE, but it seems like that would be a natural place for that, so.
I did meet with Tessa very early on to talk to her about just this very issue, because I'm just now in my 3rd month of my 3rd year, so basically for the last 2 years, I've just sort of been gathering information, like where do we need to go here? And that was, I honestly, I think somebody called me on their 3rd day in this job. I was like, we have to do something about instruments. And so I've done a lot of research on maintenance and repair and replacement. And just anecdotally, we have an instrument in this division that has been used every year for 50 years. It has continued to be repaired. The woman that owns the company now inherited the company from her father, and her father sold that instrument to this division 50 years ago. And I was like, okay, I mean, that's a cool story.
Stradivarius.
But
Yeah, what type of instrument?
Yeah.
I'd like to borrow
Oh my
that.
God, someone's been blowing into that for 50 years. That's
God.
They clean it in between, I'm sure.
Well, could we get a report then? I think it would be helpful as a school board for us to see, like, what the needs are.
Yeah, so
I would
the
love
high
to
school
see.
band directors and middle school band directors are going to be doing an inventory of instruments.
In an ideal
and
world, like,
strings, yeah.
what would make it so that you're not borrowing, so that in any given year, almost all of your students, if not all, have their instruments, and then maybe scaled back, what would it look like to get by, but still have more than you have now?
To maybe build up
Yeah,
slowly.
yeah,
What are
and
the things
maybe
that
a
we need
plan of like, maybe we can't fund it all in 1 year, but maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, we have a goal of completely having a fully funded music program with instruments and whatever. What does that look like? I have no idea, like,
And
that,
making the case to the public that this is
Yeah.
valuable, that music, that the arts in and of themselves has
100%.
a value.
But if we have that
but
data and we
there are
have those
career
numbers.
paths as well.
Yeah, and if we have all that information, I think it's a lot more powerful for us to be able to go out and say, whether it's in the budget process or through foundations or, petitioning the public. Let's see what that means.
So you're a curriculum coordinator now, right? And do you have a budget?
I have a small budget that mostly pays for, we hire outside clinicians and conductors and composer for
Right.
various events.
Well, that's one place we could look at
Mostly
putting
that's where it goes.
repair money. For instance, like in the science budget, in the days of yore, we repaired the microscopes.
Right.
Centrally. We didn't start off that way. We didn't start off that way. It was school by school, and
Little Bunsen burners.
took it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, just buy new ones. Those things are worth it. But
That was being facetious.
I know you've been telling, if you've got a bad one, just toss it.
But is it, I wonder if there's something akin to what we had to do with busing, which is that we absolutely could not, like, we could not meet all of the need
Yeah.
if we just had a no, like, whether or not you can take your own kids to school, we're going to take your kids to school. So you're talking about 20 to 70%, right? And obviously socioeconomic situations change, so maybe it's 50% who really need it now, right? Or I don't know, you're making numbers, I'll make up numbers.
No, sure.
So, but it's not
Ish.
70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Right, we eliminated all fees for all students,
We-
whether or
right.
not they could.
Yeah.
And I think that those things, those programs are awesome, but I think that sometimes people who truly need them don't have as much benefit from them as people who don't need them. I think that is the case with no AP fees. I mean, so it's a little bit similar to that. So I wonder if there's something akin to that, that does not take, that continues to remove the barrier for students who feel that barrier and need, you know, the instrument. And then, I know that in strings, you said some people bring their own if they can. I don't know, I just feel
It's
like.
that tension between free and reduced lunch and the stigma attached to needing the help
Right.
versus,
Right.
you know, remove it for everybody, then you don't have that stigma, but.
But this
then you
kid
gotta
doesn't
pay
have
for it.
a
Then you
tenor
gotta pay
sax.
for it.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd throw just for band and orchestra is it's a pretty big financial commitment at the beginning too, and there are some things that are cheaper and easier to rent, but I think the alto saxophone is the one I point to where I've had many families say, you know, $120 a month is a lot to
It's a
ask
lot.
for someone
Yeah,
to
it's a
pay
lot.
for rent.
Yeah,
And
it's a lot.
that's what we were asking before the no fees policy.
Yeah.
For people that
Right.
want to play the saxophone, and then, so I know exactly where you're coming from. I would say at my school, I think the population of that school has changed, at Lakeside has changed over the last, since I started working there 17 years ago, oh, getting old. And it does feel like that 20% to 70% also coincides with that, with the change in the population. And, you know, and I can tell you this, the no fees policy has made those kids super happy.
Yeah.
Like, there are kids that would never have done music, and now they're in the marching band at Albemarle, and they're seniors and graduate, and, you know, not Levine. Levine did, I didn't teach
Data
Levine.
about how much the fees, how much revenue that generated.
I mean, like, I took choir as a kid because I couldn't afford an instrument.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I don't know what the need is, and we'll get a needs assessment. And we just heard today that we need more SPED coverage and EL coverage in CTE. And we are on a 2-year
You look at
biennium.
fine arts also.
Or, I'm
Yeah,
sure we do.
100%. I
I'm
mean,
sure
that's
that
the
we
thing.
do.
It's not in one area, you know, it's like.
Right. So when I'm thinking about all these things, arts is very important to us. And I just want to
How can we
know
get
that
creative?
we're using the things that we have.
Yeah, how can we get creative to make sure that we're meeting all those needs?
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm
Challenge
curious
yourself.
about is how, when the money was reallocated to the schools for distribution to programs, I don't know how much that was, and so I'm curious about how that went out. But I think one of the other problems, like, I mean, we've highlighted the instrumental needs, but art materials are
Yeah.
expensive
Right.
too.
Right.
And they've always been expensive.
Yeah.
And things have just gotten more and more and more
Yeah.
expensive
Yeah.
in the last 5 years. And so,
And just all the things you need to put on theater, you know,
Yeah.
theater performances.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
I have, yeah, this is an area that I'm really exploring.
Yeah, I'm really
But
glad that you're
it's so
here.
important, yeah.
Yeah.
I would love that information. I think that will really help us figure out how to be creative.
Do we charge for, I know we charge for theater performances, but what about concerts?
we don't always charge for theater performances. That's on a school-by-school
Yeah, based on the
basis.
school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they definitely did. They definitely did. It's
Well,
actually,
I mean, one of the issues that we have is how we can take money also. And that's something that's way out of my scope and, way above my. pay
Legally?
grade. How are we allowed to take money? Like, we're not allowed to take Venmo or credit card payments. And so.
Who's not?
They buy.
We can take cash.
Do they
We're
take-
not allowed to
or they
take
buy a
Venmo.
ticket in advance, I guess.
The programs have been told that they're not allowed to, unless it's a nonprofit, it's a separate.
That's
What about the
been a
athletic
huge
programs?
problem for
Josh, is that
us.
something you can look into for us? That they're saying that, like, the programs, the art programs aren't allowed to take Venmo or things like that.
I see
It's just
Rosalind
cash
getting
and
up.
check.
Should
But
we-
that's also a barrier for them.
What about athletic programs? What are they doing?
I can't imagine why that would be the case, but I'll be happy to
That's
look
what I
into it.
thought. It seems weird to me, but they're saying that that's a big, can you look into that?
I'll chime in. Platforms like Venmo and PayPal, we do not utilize as a school division. There's many reasons why. I can elaborate on that. What we have started to set up is through My School Bucks. And just this year, field trips can do electronic payments, so I think the opportunities will expand. We got our toe in the water on it. We know that's a barrier, so we think we have a solution, and we're slowly expanding it. But Venmo and PayPal are not an option.
Interesting kettle of fish.
Yeah. Looks like the other group is back.
Okay, thank you, yeah.
We need Xander to play us off. Please feel free to email me.
Instead of the gavel, if we
Thank you, this was great.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having us. And could I get you about doing the arts and cultures pathway?
Yes, please do. I sent you a message with my,
Awesome.
did you get my email about?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so just reach out anytime.
Okay. Sounds good. Will I be able to?
Sure. I'd like to hear about that.
I heard that. Oh, celery? Or what's that? What, you brought it?
That was awful.
That is. I'm proud of you.
All right, thank you. I do want to take a moment just to thank all the teachers and counselors and students who were able to join us tonight. I think they brought a richness and depth to the conversation that we couldn't do in just presenting to you. So thank you, everyone.
Awesome.
They got a 2-hour delay, is that?
2-hour delay.
Yeah, sleep
All
in.
right. Sleep in. In putting the presentation together, I know that you're probably starting to think of some themes. It was a lot of information tonight. It'll be a lot of information. It's a lot of information. It was hard to plan and to think about what to include and what not to include, but these are some of the themes that we were starting to take away and looking at the information that we were putting together, just about refining our narratives around greater understanding around multiple pathways, designing programs that allow students their own sense of what a good life is, ensuring the broadest access through in-person and online tools, and acknowledging the multiple relationships and influences that inform young people's behaviors and decision-making, and working together to support that attainment of their goals. These are questions that we posed at the beginning. I'll remind you, and we'll go back for questions if you have any at the end of this evening, but when we come back in October, we will cover more in-depth information around Scholars Studios, industry credentials, and work-based learning opportunities. I know there were some questions already coming up about those. We will go into detail on those 3 programs in October. But are there any questions for the group this evening? I know lots of questions were asked in the breakout rooms, but are there any questions or thoughts now that you're all back together?
I would encourage my board mates to send you any questions that we have for the October work session before that.
Perfect.
This was a great session.
Yeah, this was really.
Yeah, it was super helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone. All right, is there any other business by the board members and the superintendent? I don't see anything. All right. Class dismissed.
But wait.
Nope.
Yeah, right.
I was teasing. We immediately got right back on schedule. Nice job, Craig. I said right into the hot mic.